Good morning from a very sunny Peterborough station here on the East Coast mainline, and today you join me for a trip up to Edinburgh Waverley. On any other day this would be a pretty mundane trip, I probably wouldn't even vlog it, but today there is engineering works between Newcastle and Edinburgh. It happens once a year, a couple of weekends over September, so it's a pretty rare thing to do. And most of the services actually get terminated at Newcastle, but one train an hour in each direction continues up to Edinburgh via a very interesting route over to Carlisle and then up the West Coast main line to Edinburgh. It's really unusual to get LNER going up the West Coast main line, so I thought I'd come down to Peterborough today and take a trip up to the capital. And yeah, it should be a really nice scenic journey, and it'll be a bit of a change for me. I've never done this before. So my train arrives in about 15 minutes time. I've actually booked first class because I had about £20 of LNER credit to use, so I decided to upgrade myself for the journey this morning. It should be really comfortable, and yeah, we'll just see how the rest of the journey goes. Having arrived from my local station of Stamford, just a short 15-minute train journey away, I had a little time to spare at Peterborough itself whilst waiting for my LNER service to arrive. Soon enough though, today's 9-carriage Class 800 Azuma pulled into platform 4 bang on time to take me on the unusual journey up to the Scottish capital. Introduced with LNER in 2019, these Class 800s have a top speed of 140 miles per hour, though will only reach 125 today, and can travel on both diesel and electric power, a crucial factor for today's route, as we'll be taking the unelectrified Tyne Valley line from Newcastle to Carlisle. As mentioned earlier, I'd managed to bag myself a pretty good value first class upgrade for the 6-hour journey, meaning I made my way into Coach K, one of 3 first class carriages in the set, as we accelerated away from the station.
Newark Northgate, York, Darlington, Newcastle, Carlisle and Aberdeen.
With the journey now well underway, it's time to have a look at LNER's first class offering on board. Despite their criticisms, I actually find the seats themselves perfectly comfortable, featuring a soft leather headrest with first class embroidery, fairly good levels of padding, both standard and USB plug sockets at each place, and an excellent level of recline controlled by the button to the left. As well as this, there's a complimentary refreshment service on board, with orders for breakfast taken almost immediately after departure by the very friendly crew. Speeding up the East Coast mainline, it wasn't long before my breakfast arrived in the form of a very tasty bacon roll, a cup of tea and even some biscuits. An excellent way to start the morning if you ask me. And arriving at our first intermediate stop of Newark Northgate, we catch a glimpse of one of Network Rail's so-called Thunderbird locomotives, engines kept on standby to rescue any broken down trains on the East Coast mainline. Moments later, our service intersects the Nottingham to Lincoln line at Newark's Flat Crossing, the last remaining crossing of its type on the UK's rail network, and one of many lesser known quirks of the East Coast route.
Would you like anything to eat? Can I have a bacon roll? Yep, so chocolate brown sauce? Brown sauce. Yes, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very true. That's a good, actually, that's a good moment. Because when it's not your...
Just over 1 hour and 20 minutes after leaving Peterborough, we pull into the Grand Station at York, a major hub not only for LNER services seen here, but also for cross-country on their southwest to Scotland routes, Transpennine on their trains to Newcastle, Liverpool and Scarborough, and of course Northern on their regional routes to destinations like Harrogate, Leeds, Hull and Sheffield. With another round of hot drinks, we pull into Darlington Station, a key site in this year's Railway 200 celebrations, to mark 200 years since the opening of the Stockton and Darlington Railway back in 1825. Rather fittingly, upon arrival we passed the Inspiration Train, a travelling exhibition touring various parts of the UK rail network as part of this year's bicentenary celebrations.
Just because you've been on the same, yeah, say anything like this. Various places. Yeah, they don't like you. They don't like it. Thanks, mate. She wants to tough herself up.
Roughly 10 minutes after passing the spectacular medieval cathedral at Durham, we reached the southern bank of the Tyne on the approach to Newcastle's King Edward VII Bridge. Spanning 350 metres across the River Tyne itself, this impressive structure has been described as Britain's last great railway bridge, being completed and opened to traffic in 1906. Due to our service running early, we had about a 10-minute stop on the approach to the station whilst waiting for our platform to become free, before continuing with the first of many crossings of the Tyne today, having been given the all clear. Well, we have made it to Newcastle, where we actually switched direction and head over to Carlisle via that branch. Really unusual for LNER, so I'm looking forward to hopefully some nice scenery and of course up the West Coast main line from there. It's about 5 minutes before departure from here. So far so good, we're running on time, all the staff have been really friendly, obviously I've got my breakfast. So yeah, it's been a good journey so far, and let's hope that continues. As just mentioned, due to the engineering works taking place north of Newcastle, today the station will be acting as a reversal point for the much reduced number of cross-border rail services, with a roughly 10-minute break for the driver to swap ends and take us back over the River Tyne as we retrace our steps in a southerly direction. And with this section of the journey underway, now's a good time to take a closer look at the route of today's fascinating diversion. Upon departing Newcastle, our LNER service almost immediately joins the 58-mile Tyne Valley line, tracing the south bank of the river through stations at Dunstan, Metro Centre and Blaydon. From here we follow the rough path of Hadrian's Wall, passing through stations at Hexham, Hayden Bridge, Bardon Mill and Holtwhistle on our way into the ceremonial county of Cumbria. With further stations brushed past at speed, we eventually converge with the scenic line to Settle and Leeds on our way into Carlisle itself. After a set-down-only stop at the Grand Station, we begin the long climb up the northern section of the West Coast Main Line, of course taking the route to Edinburgh at Carstairs Junction. Finally, having briefly joined the Shotts line just before Kirk Newton, we eventually pull into Edinburgh Waverley, concluding a long but interesting route from Newcastle. As can be seen here, despite being not that much longer in terms of distance at 162 miles compared to the usual route marked with the red arrows, today's diversion has a much extended journey time at 3 hours and 24 minutes, giving our Newcastle to Edinburgh portion of the journey a pretty slow average speed of just 48 miles an hour. After tracing the East Coast Main Line back across the King Edward VII Bridge, we soon join the Tyne Valley line proper, passing through the first of 5 stations along this route with listed status at Wylam. The railway between Newcastle and Carlisle was first opened in stages between 1834 and 1838, before being absorbed into the North Eastern Railway in 1862. Today's stations between Newcastle and Hexham see 3 trains per hour operated by Northern, with 2 of these continuing along the full route to Carlisle, though of course we'll be running non-stop the entire way. Crossing the Tyne yet again, the onboard trolley made another appearance with hot drinks and snacks, which were enjoyed as we cruised through the station at Hayden Bridge, roughly the halfway point of our hop across to Carlisle. As can be seen here, much of the line is still controlled by semaphore signals, with mechanical signal boxes located at various points throughout, offering quite a stark contrast as our comparatively brand new train speeds through. Soon we approached the beautiful station at Holtwhistle, opened in 1838. Today the station is a typical through stop with 2 platforms serving either direction. However, from 1852 to 1976, Holtwhistle acted as a junction for the 13-mile branch to Alston, with the disused bay platform still in situ today. Crossing the River Eden on the spectacular 5-arch Wetherell Viaduct, also known as Corby Bridge, we soon join with the northern end of the 73-mile-long settled Carlisle line at Peterborough Bridge Junction, climbing towards the West Coast mainline on the final approach to the station, concluding a very enjoyable stint along the Tyne Valley. Of course, our journey isn't quite over yet, with just over 100 miles of track still left to traverse before arrival into Edinburgh this afternoon. So with about a 10-minute stop in platform 1 of Carlisle, I took the opportunity to stretch my legs and grab a quick picture for the thumbnail before jumping back on board as we pull away from the border city. Not long after crossing the border into Scotland, the heavy rain soon begins, so with a final round of complimentary refreshments, including cold drinks and various snacks, I sat back into my seat to enjoy the beautiful scenery. After that beautiful journey through southern Scotland, we eventually approached the outskirts of Edinburgh and Haymarket, entering a very long but extremely enjoyable journey from Peterborough. However, whilst the journey was coming to a close, I still had a busy afternoon ahead of me, with a very special meeting planned with fellow YouTuber Clive's Travel and Trains. So make sure you go and check out his channel, which I'll link in the corner as I conclude today's video with my final thoughts. Well, I've made it to Edinburgh Waverley after that slightly longer than usual journey. It took me 6 hours to come up from Peterborough today, whereas it usually takes only about 3.5. But nonetheless, it was still a really fascinating journey via the Newcastle to Carlisle line, and then of course the West Coast Main Line, which is really rare on an LNER service. Obviously this only happens once a year on these 2 weekends in September for the engineering works. So I'm really glad I was able to do it, and of course with LNER's first class it was that little bit more comfortable, and I got all my complimentary snacks and drinks. So the service behind me, which I came up on, is actually going onwards to Aberdeen. That is a very long journey. I'm not sure if I'd want to do that, but yeah, it was still a really enjoyable journey. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.